Hey, you too. Welcome back to my channel. This is Nathan Daley. I'm your law enforcement translator, here to give you guys insights on all things law enforcement in this country. Any issues, conspiracies, the drama. What else? Some of these difficult conversations, you guys. I like to talk about it all because it's weird. All the things that really go on in this country always seems to kind of tie back to law enforcement, especially when we talk about the black community and the impact that law enforcement has in our community. So I don't shy away from the conversation, and I enjoy having them. And at the same time, in discussing these things with you guys since I started this channel, I myself have learned a lot. I've also seen areas where I could be a little biased, and I make the corrections. So also shout out to those who are catching me not looking at the camera, you guys. I don't know what it is, but it is a lot more difficult sitting down and looking at the lens. So I'm gonna practice. I got to get better at it. I got to get better at it. Thank you, and shout out for those who are calling it out. Sometimes, in order for us to get better, we have to get out of our comfort zone, and so that's important. It's just difficult staring into the void, right? So, anyways, let's get into it. What is this conversation? Oh, before I get into that, I want to shout out to the subscribers. Thank you guys again for your support. Also, to my new subscribers who are catching this channel for the first time, welcome to this channel, you guys. We are free thinking, critical thinkers, and we don't shy away from difficult conversation. Feel free in the comment section to express yourself, right? All I ask is that you just be respectful. So, welcome. And with that being said, we are talking about tonight Rayshard Brooks. I know we haven't forgot about him. His tragic death by the hand of an officer. We know there was a lot of issues surrounding that case, and I didn't have my channel then, so I never spoke about the incident. I'm not going to dive into that per se. This one is going to specifically be about the Wendys. You guys remember the Wendys that was burned down. So recently there are 3 people involved that were arrested, and they have been officially indicted on charges. So I want to talk about that. And just before I get into that, let me read to you the charges. 3 individuals. 35-year-old John Wesley Wade, 31-year-old Natalie Hanna White, and 24-year-old Chisom Kingston were charged with the offense of arson in the first degree, 2 counts, and conspiracy to commit arson in the first degree. Now the question is, why did they burn the Wendys down? A lot of people were asking me this, kind of last year about the incident, and I was kind of saying, okay, well, let me tell you what actually took place. Well, allegedly, according to a lot of people who were there, stated they had issues with the actual employee who called 911 on Rayshard Brooks. Now, mind you, Rayshard Brooks was asleep. He passed out inside the drive-through line. He was blocking everyone. And so the employees went out there, knocked on the window, tried to get his attention, and say, hey, sir, we need you to move your car. We know you're asleep. He kind of woke up, didn't do anything. The car was still running. They tried to get his attention again, and to no avail. They were unable to wake him up and get him to move, so they called the police just naturally, right? So the police show up. Of course, he moved, and we know how that turned out. So why burn down the building, the business? You guys, here's the problem. Over 50 plus employees worked there. And those employees were displaced, and those employees were black, African American. They worked they were part of that community. They burned down that black-owned business establishment that was there, that franchise. And so when we look at things like that, we notice that those behaviors of rioting, looting, burning, destroying property in the form of protesting doesn't serve us any good. And when this stuff was taking place in Atlanta, I was a little disappointed. I was disappointed in our people. I couldn't believe what was happening. Couldn't believe it. This reminded me of the race riots in California, And it's just one of those things where I didn't understand the logic, right? I'm a very logical person. I'm less emotional, but very logical. And when they burned down the Wendys, I couldn't make sense of it. And I remember they had images of one of the suspects, a female, she appeared to be white. And I said, okay, here's the problem we have. There are people who were protesting, who were serious about having a voice for Rayshard Brooks or speaking out against, racial inequality or police brutality. You have people who are honestly there to protest. We have BLM protesters, as we know, who are present. And we know, you guys, there's 2 factions, right? With Black Lives Matter, there's the one that has good intentions, and there's a faction that does not have good intentions. And if by now you don't know that or have not realized that, you guys, I don't know what to tell you. You got to wake up, right? There's a difference between the movement and the organization. They're two totally separate things. And what happens is there are people who are playing guerrilla warfare tactics within these organizations, and they infiltrate, they disguise themselves, or they operate under the guise of, hey, we're here protesting, and in fact, we're here to damage loot and then blame it on the organization. So we have to be very clear. So when the incident happened, I was looking at the videos. I was looking at a lot of live videos back then when it was taking place. People were saying, hey, who's that person over there putting things inside or whatever, right? Like adding flammable things into the fire, trying to get the fire ablaze. And they took pictures. They had pictures and still photos, and it was a white woman. And they're able to track her back down, going into the gas station and all that. So some images of her. So they arrested her. They found out that she had knew Rayshard Brooks to some degree. I don't know whatever came out to the relationship wise or what the relationship was, but she had knew him. And, you know, again, what happened after that? You had two other individuals that they seen who were actually actively trying to start the fire as well. And those two gentlemen were also arrested. Here's my question about the rioting and the looting. Listen, I'm all for protesting. I think it's a beautiful thing. I'm not the protesting kind of guy. I'm more of the action kind of guy. And I think, you know, to each their own, right? We all need to play our position. But my question is, what was solved? What was solved? What was accomplished? People got upset about the outcome with Rayshard Brooks, but again, not really understanding the law. There's a problem we have to talk about in our community about the law, about how policing works, and your rights as a citizen. We need to know, we have to educate ourselves better, right? We live in a community, we live in a state, we live in a country, and a lot of us in our community, there's a portion of us who really don't even know our own rights, know what we can and cannot do under law. You know, Rayshard Brooks put himself in a very uncompromising position. Listen, what sparked his death? Him resisting. You know, people were making a lot of moral arguments, and I get it. We can make the moral arguments all day. Morally, if we make a moral argument, it's tragic. He shouldn't have died from something that was so, in a sense, what we call trivial. But we do live in a country of law, you guys, and so we have to be mindful of that. You can't do these things in other countries, so it's not like this is a special thing. I think the emphasis is always, when it comes to these police shootings, is when the officer is white and the victim or the suspect is black. This is the only time we get up in arms about these situations. You guys, not to diminish this incident with Rayshard Brooks, but there are white people and other people in this country who have bad outcomes from officers who don't, one, do their job properly, or two, they do their job properly, and in the course of them doing their job, someone has lost their life. But when you trace it back and you look at the circumstances, I tell people all the time, we have to examine these shootings, we have to examine these outcomes as individual outcomes, individual circumstances, right? These are oftentimes isolated incidences, and we have to look at them carefully. You know, in order to understand why a person resists arrest, we have to understand what was going on in their mind, what their circumstances were, what they were running for, or what they have to lose, what they have to gain. These are questions that we ask ourselves when dealing with suspects, dealing with people who don't want to be arrested. What do they have to lose? What do they have to gain? Because oftentimes people who don't have anything to lose, or people who do have something to gain, they do things differently. Their behavior is different. Sometimes it's fear-based. So what are your thoughts on this? I'm really curious to know what people think, right? Because now all this stuff has died down. No one's really talking about police issues anymore, right? Like, it's not a big topic at the moment. What do you think about these three suspects now? They burn they burn this building down. This is a black-owned business, employed black people in the community, and they lost those jobs. And the owner said, I'm not putting another one up. Nothing was replaced there. And not only that, like, what came out of that situation? What laws were changed during all of that damage and destruction? I'm curious. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what you think. What came out of that? Who benefited from that? I know there are other people who died in Atlanta behind that protest, right? They ended up putting up blockades. They blocked the street off. People in the community came out with their guns and they said, hey, we don't want the police down here anymore. This area is blocked off. This University Ave down here in Atlanta. What happened? Days after, a few steps from the fire scene, an 8-year-old girl, Sequoia Turner, was shot and killed in her car. Listen, we're talking about these kids who've been shot and killed in their this happens. It's like the fourth child in a vehicle who's been shot because of foolishness, senseless gun violence. A car was coming down the area, the street where they had blocked off in front of the Rayshard Brooks memorial that they built. And the guy said, hey, listen, I need to get down to the street because I live down here. And they're like, nah, nobody gets down here. We own this block. Turn around. He said, man, I'm right here. Let me get through. They get into a verbal altercation, right? Verbal dispute. And guess what? The suspect with the gun starts firing shots into the vehicle. As he's trying to pull away and leave, they turn to realize that Sequoia Turner was shot in the back with a rifle round. Dead. You know, dead. We have another kid just died just recently again. You know, check it out. I'm going to do a video on it because they arrested a second suspect, a female. So what is this about? This is not the only child who was killed in a vehicle or shot at in a vehicle driving through and got tangled up in the mix between some foolishness. So again, I'm asking you guys, I'm curious. All the rioting in this country, all the rioting, all the looting that took place in the name of injustice, in the name of police brutality, in the name of Black Lives Matter, in the name of racial injustice, what came out of that? And I'm asking that, not being sarcastic. I'm really curious. What came out of that protest? What came out of the riots? Because when I saw the picture came across the news today, I was like, okay, these three got arrested. They burned this whole building down. What for? I'm trying to see what revolutionary movement. They tore this city apart. And even though some of them weren't the protesters, you may not have been a part of the initial destruction of the city, but you participated. I know kids who went up there because they stopped me and talked to me and things like that. Say, hey, I went down to the protest in the city, and then all of a sudden people are looting. And he's like, I just couldn't help myself. People took advantage of it, and people died too. No one talked about that. They looked at it as an opportunity to steal stuff. Online, they were talking about, hey, we're going to hit this store next, you guys. We're going to hit this store next. You guys don't know this, but those groups of people started to migrate out of the city, and they started going to other neighboring areas, different counties, looting. What we did was we gave criminals the pass to operate with impunity. That's really all it was. And that moment with the protest has emboldened criminals, emboldened people even with our own community to disrespect authority, disrespect the law, to start looking at all police as if they're all bad people. So I'm curious what you guys think. Has the rioting, the protesting, the looting, has it helped the black cause, the black agenda, whatever the agenda is? Does it help with the inequality issue? Has it helped with the police brutality issue? Has it helped at all? Has it helped at all? I'm curious. What do you guys think? Outside of that, them clowns are indicted, So, burn the whole building down. I don't see what was accomplished. But, I'm open to hear some thoughts, you guys. I'm really curious. You might know something that I don't know. You might have heard something or seen something I'm not aware. A bill might have slipped past me. Maybe a law was passed. Or maybe they're still working on it. Or maybe, just maybe, it was for political purposes, right? Listen, did we gain anything from that? Did we gain anything from that? I want to hear what you have to say. I'm curious. Anyways, you guys, that's it. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And with that, you guys, good night. God bless.